this, we will be discussing the whole assessment criteria of 4.1 and 2 both in detail. Understand the policies, procedures, legislation, and best practices for managing information. We will discuss this as an overall in these coming slides. After this, we have 4.1 and 2. Here, the command verbs are analyze and explain. Analyze is all about discussion on the negative and positive aspects as well. And explain is the explanation in detail of each and every details or points. Analyze policies, procedures, and best practice for managing workplace information. Explain key legislation applicable to managing workplace information in a given country or state. For the lecture slide, I chose the UK because I think in past slides and subjects, we always try to discuss UK in our lecture slides. And when I make your assignment brief classes, I always discuss Dubai or Canada. Okay, so here is the command verb. Analyze mean break the subject or the complex situations into separate parts and examine each part in detail. Identify the main issues and show how the main ideas are related to the practice and why they are important. Reference to the current research or theory may support the analysis. So in short, you're going to tell the things in detail. You're going to tell about the importance, problems, their solutions, supporting them with the examples. Explain is all about making something clear to someone by describing or revealing relevant information in more detail. All right. First, let's get into the overview of the whole LO4, what it says. Understanding the policies for managing information. Now I have break the question into parts. First, we will discuss the policies. Policies provide a structured framework for information management within an organization. Adhering to the policies ensures consistency, security, and compliance with regulatory standards. Obviously, when you make policies or even a policy in an organization, even a corporate industry or market, there are certain things which are attached to it or strings. The correct word is strings. Now they are called consistency, security, and to get compatible with the standards set by the authority, standards set by the government. For example, data privacy policy, outlining how consumer data should be handled, information security policy, defining measures to protect sensitive information. Sensitive information could be of the patients, could be of the people living in a corporate society, even in a society where there is a link of an army. Legislation. Now we have to understand legislation for the managing information part. Legislation sets legal requirements and standards for information management. Compliance with relevant laws is essential to avoid legal consequences and safeguard stakeholders' interest. If you don't know certain tax rules and you're just opening up your business and you're working in the corporate sector, even if it is on an outskirt of the city or in between the city, of course, there are going to be some set, we can say, abduction on those processes which you're doing. So you should be fair enough and well aware of whatever the government legislation are imposed on your business beforehand. For example, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, ensuring the lawful processing of the personal data of the consumers, of the employees. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, protecting the healthcare information, that is the information which is used in the hospitals, in the clinic, and so on, even in the mental asylums as well. Now, best practices for managing information. Best practices represent proven methods and approaches for effective information management. That is the one which are more applicable, and with less period of time, we can achieve target and goals. For example, periodic assessments of information management process, user training, ensuring employees are knowledgeable about information handling. That is beforehand, we are going to go ahead with certain process and procedure, they know each and everything beforehand. In summary, understanding and adhering to the policies, procedures, legislation, and the best practices collectively form a robust foundation for effective information management within an organization. This not only ensures compliance but also contributes to the operational excellence and the protection of sensitive data. That is what the whole topic is all about. So, this was the whole, you can say, a kind of summary of the LO4 in which we discussed that what kind of policies, procedures, and legislation they act or play a part in the process or the practices for managing information. This is the example, a scenario based of an XYZ corporation. In this, we will be discussing about information management implementation. The background is XYZ Corporation, a multinational company in the tech sector, recognized the need to enhance its information management practices due to rapid business growth and increasing data volumes. Now, what could be the policy's implementation? XYZ Corporation introduced a comprehensive set of information management policies. This is the first thing which you need to adhere. For instance, they formulated a data classification policy that categorized information based on sensitivity levels. Now, the levels of sensitivity is always different. It could be on level 1, it could be on level 2, 3, and 4, and so on. This policy guided employees on how to handle and store data, ensuring compliance with the data protection standard. Because sometimes what happens is when the general public wants to approach to the personal data, it is not easily accessible, not at one stance. But if a CID officer or a criminal investigator, they go to the those certain corporate sectors or the hospitals, those people are bound to provide them with those certain sensitive information. Procedures and implementation of it, the procedures implementation basically. To streamline information management, XYZ Corporation implemented detailed procedures. One notable procedure was the document lifecycle management procedure. This outlined the stages from the document creation to disposal. That is when we make it, we give a birth to that document to make it disposal of, ensuring systematic handling and retrieval of the documents. Employees were trained to follow these steps, minimizing errors and delays. This is for the implementation part. Now, legislation compliance. Given the company's global presence, compliance with the data protection laws was crucial. XYZ Corporation ensured adherence to the General Data Protection Regulation and similar regional laws. Regular assessments were conducted, and adjustments were made to process to align with evolving legislative requirements. Best practices adoption. XYZ Corporation adopted industry best practices to optimize info management. One notable practice was the implementation of a data encryption best practice. This ensured that sensitive data, both in transit and at rest, that is the one which is present at the front line and the one which is at the back, the reports and files which are not related to this year 2024, was encrypted, safeguarding it from unauthorized access. What was the outcome of all this? The implementation of these elements led to tangible improvements. The organization experienced reduced data breaches, enhanced data accuracy, and increased stakeholder confidence. Employees were well informed about information management, contributing to a more secure and efficient work environment. In this scenario, the corporation commitment to understanding and implementing policies, procedures, legislation, and best practices for managing information played a pivotal role in achieving operational excellence and maintaining compliance with the legal standards. I believe till now you have understood that what the whole LO4 means through this example. Now we will be discussing through assessment criteria 4.1, analyze policies, procedures, and best practices for managing workplace information. Analyzing policies, procedures, and best practices for managing workplace information involves a comprehensive examination of the guidelines organizations have in place to ensure the proper handling, storage, and security of information. So, what is the purpose of that workplace information regarding these policy procedure? It is all about handling or the settlement of the storage and the security of information. The first point is confidentiality policies. Confidentiality policies define how sensitive information should be treated to prevent unauthorized access or disclosure. That is, again, we have decided certain levels. So it is upon us that how we secure the data or breach the data. For example, a healthcare organization may have policies specifying that patient medical records should only be accessed by authorized personnel involved in the patient care. Maybe your dad, maybe your husband, maybe your wife, and of course the medical staff as well. Secure storage procedures. Procedures outline the methods and protocols for securely storing both physical and digital information, the one which we are noting it down manually and the one which we are restoring and adding into our laptops or computers, desktops. For example, digital files containing financial data may require encryption, and physical documents might need to be stored in locked cabinets accessible only by authorized personnel. Roles of data processors and controllers. Clearly defining the roles of data processors, that is, handling the data, and data controllers, that is, determining the data processing purposes, ensures accountability and compliance with the data protection regulation. I have already explained that what data processors are and controllers, handling data and simply process. For example, in an e-commerce company, the IT department, that is the data processors, they are processing the data, handles the consumer's transaction data, while the legal department, that is the data controllers, because they can allow you whether to share the information or not, ensures compliance with the privacy laws. Principles of best practice. Best practices in the information management encompasses the overarching principles that guide organizations in handling information responsibly. For example, the principle of the data minimization encourages organizations to collect and retain only the data necessary for their operations, reducing the risk of privacy breaches. That is, limited information is collected from the patients or from the corporate people, whether they're employees or the workers or the consumers, so that we can make the chances of breach less. Regular audits and monitoring. Conducting regular audits and monitoring activities help the organization access compliance with the information management policy, that is, check and balance. Doing it again and again. For example, an organization might periodically review the access lags to identify and address new unauthorized attempts to access sensitive information. Employee training and awareness. Ensuring the employees are well informed and trained on the information security practices is a key aspect of best practice. Before even doing a teaching or doing a certain kind of job, you're given a training. It could be on the job or it could be off the job, but at least you guys are trained for it. Then you are given that authority or a position. Disposal and retention policies. Policies governing the secure disposal and retention of information ensure the proper life cycle management. That is, you're disposing the information which is not longer in use and you're retaining the new data as well. For example, financial institutions may have policies specifying the retention period for the consumer transactions records and security procedures for the eventual disposal as well. Incident response procedures. Having documented incident response procedures ensures a swift and organized response to data breaches or security incidents. For example, in the event of cybersecurity incident, a company may have a predefined response plan that includes notifying the affected parties and implementing the corrective measures. Obviously, beforehand, they have done the homework in the back, at the back, basically. So we cannot breach them or we cannot directly tell them that you haven't provided the data for this specific department or not. Everything is pre-planned. By understanding and implementing these elements, organizations can establish a robust framework for effective and secure information management. Again, an example. The scenario is about secure storage and confidentiality in healthcare. This is the topic. In a reputable healthcare institution, policies and procedures related to information management play a crucial role in ensuring the patient confidentiality and the secure storage of the medical records. The details. Now, these are the point according to the point wise, which we discussed above, but the scenario is different. Healthcare providers are required to adhere to strict confidentiality policies to protect the patient privacy. Access to electronic health records is restricted to authorized medical personnel involved in the direct care of patients. Secure storage procedures. Digital medical records are encrypted to prevent unauthorized access. Additionally, physical records are stored in locked filing cabinets within the secure areas accessible only to the healthcare professionals with the appropriate clearance. Roles of data processors and controllers. The IT department, that is, the data processors, manages the storage and retrieval of the patient data, while the medical staff and administrators, that is, the data controllers, oversee the purposes and the policies governing the use of patient information. Principles of best practice here. The best practice emphasizes the principle of need to know. Only personnel directly involved in patient care have access to specific medical information, aligning with the data minimization principle. The story behind the points is about the healthcare system we want to fetch a data. Now, the points which we discussed in detail from the indicative content in reference to SC 4.1, now I believe you can understand that what those points mean by applying it to the real life situation. Regular audits and monitoring. The institution conducts periodic audits of the HR access lags to identify any unusual activity. Monitoring helps detect and address any potential breaches promptly. Staff members receive ongoing training, that is, in the hospital, on maintaining patient confidentiality, recognizing social engineering tactics, and ensuring the secure handling of medical records. There are well defined policies regarding the retention period for medical records. Records are securely disposed of when they reached the end of their life cycle to prevent any potential data breaches. It is very hard to find the data of 1859 or even 1950 in the year 2024. It is very difficult, but again, if somebody has a very nice record at the back of the manual data, maybe we are able to find it. In the event of a data breach, for example, if it gets out, the institution has a comprehensive incident response plan. This plan includes notifying affected patients, reporting to the relevant authorities, and implementing the corrective measures to prevent similar incidents. That is, if anything happens like this, your information is out to some person, a fake person, definitely, then they can uh, contact you. They can tell the relevant authority, the legislations, and the government. This scenario illustrates how healthcare organizations implement policies, procedures, and best practice to manage information securely, particularly in an environment where the patient confidentiality is a paramount. That is the key aspect. Now discussing 4.2, explain key legislation applicable to managing workplace information in a given country or state. In the United Kingdom, managing workplace information is governed by key legislation, primarily the Data Protection Act 2018, which incorporates the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) and the role of the Information Commissioner's Office (ICO). Now, these are the terms act which I cannot change or I cannot explain in more detail. Least I could do is give you a real life example at the end. Because these are set act, set data, set laws which nobody can change after the approval of the government. For example, in the Data Protection Act 2018, DPA 2018, we have few sub-points of it. The first is the legislation overview. The Data Protection Act 2018 is the UK's comprehensive framework for processing personal data and ensures that organizations handle information responsibly. Principles of data processing. The Act outlines 6 principles that organization must adhere to, including fairness, lawfulness, transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity, and confidentiality. Now, these were the points in those principles as well, which are under the Data Protection Act 2018. Individual rights. DPA 2018 grants individuals various rights such as the access of right to access their data, the right to rectification, erasure, the right to be forgotten, and the right to object to processing. Now, for the individuals like you and me, we have these rights in UK for the Act 2018 DPA. Data controllers and processors. The Act distinguishes between data controllers, entities determining the purposes and means of processing, and the data processors, that is the entities, that is the people, any authority which is responsible for processing the data on behalf of the controllers. Security measures. Organizations are required to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure the security of the personal data. Then part 2, Information Commissioner's Office, ICO. Here we have subpart of it, regulatory authority. The ICO is an independent authority established to enforce information rights, which is promoting the openness by the public bodies and ensure the data protection compliance. Role and responsibilities. ICO provides guidance to organizations on the data protection compliance, conducts investigations, and has the authority to issue fines for the breaches. That is, if a person is finding out somebody has leaked the information, then they can fine them. Obviously, they have the data authority. Registration requirement. Data controllers are typically required to register with the ICO, demonstrating their commitment to compliance. GDPR alignment. The first thing is the influence. The DPA 2018 aligns with the GDPR, it's a subpart of it, a comprehensive European regulation that governs data protection, ensuring a consistent approach to information management across the European Union. International data transfers. The legislation outlines provisions for international data transfers, ensuring that the personal data leaving the UK is adequately protected. And this is true because it's not easy to fetch the data and leave that country specifically if you are an immigrant. Compliance and penalties. Obligations. Organizations are obliged or obligated to implement measures to comply with the data protection principles, including conducting the data protection impact assessment. This is the, again, a suboptimal part of it for high risk processing activities. It could be for the professional people, it could be for the politicians and the people with the high authorities. Fines and penalties. Non-compliance with the data protection laws may result in significant fines imposed by the ICO, emphasizing the importance of adherence to regulatory requirements. In summary, the Data Protection Act 2018 and the role of the Information Commissioner's Office are fundamental to managing the workplace information in the UK. These legal frameworks establish clear guidelines, rights, responsibilities, ensuring that organizations handle personal data with transparency, fairness, and accountability. What is the whole purpose behind the whole Protection Act or the Data Protection Act 2018? They want to secure their data. When they want to secure your data, then definitely they have built up a body behind it as well, which is responsible to overlook. Now I'll give you again an example. Let's consider a real-life scenario that illustrates the application of the Data Protection Act 2018 and the role of Information Commissioner's Office in the context of managing workplace information. XYZ Company and the GDPR compliance. XYZ Company, a medium-sized tech firm based in London, is actively engaged in processing the personal data for its clients and employees. In response to the implementation of the Data Protection Act 2018, DPA 2018, aligning with the General Data Protection Regulation GDPR, the XYZ company takes proactive steps to ensure compliance and uphold the rights of individuals. Now, these are the elements through which we will be discussing the scenario. Data mapping and processing. XYZ company conducts a comprehensive data mapping exercise to identify the types of personal data it processes. The purposes of the processing and the systems involved. This includes employee data, consumer information, and third party data. This is what they do. This is their JD of the organization. Legal basis and consent. The company reviews and revises its privacy policies, ensuring that the processing of the personal data is based on legitimate grounds and that explicit consent is obtained where necessary. Employees are informed about their data rights and how their information will be used. Before taking the information for any certain project, a certain thing which we are going to hold on a national level or maybe international level, we are going to inform our clients, whether they are consumers, whether they're employees, whether they are workers, or what so on. Data subject rights. XYZ company establishes the mechanism for handling the data subject request, such as access request, rectification, and erasure. The company's privacy notice promptly communicates these rights, empowering individuals to exercise control over data. That is the individuals like me and you. Security measures. Recognizing the importance of data security, XYZ company implements the robust security measures, including the encryption, for example, the encrypted data which we use on the WhatsApp as well, access controls, regular security audits. This ensures the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the personal data. ICO registration and collaboration. XYZ company registers with the Information Commissioner's Office as a data controller. Demonstrating the commitment to compliance, the company actively seeks guidance from the ICO on best practices, attends relevant workshops, and stays informed about updates in data protection regulations. Data protection impact assessment. For the projects involving in the high risk processing activities, XYZ company conducts data protection, which impact assessment DPI, to identify and mitigate the potential privacy risk. For implementing the high risk processing activities, we are using DPI. This proactive approach aligns with the GDPR requirements and enhances the accountability. That is a check and balance. Incident response and reporting. In the event of a data breach, XYZ company follows a well-defined incident response plan. The ICO is promptly notified and the company cooperates fully with the regulatory authority, demonstrating transparency and accountability. Employee training. Regular training sessions are conducted for the employees to raise awareness about the data protection principles, the importance of compliance, and the role each individual plays in safeguarding personal information. We are telling our consumers, our customers, that you have to save your information like this and that, how secure your data is going to be. But what if we are not training our staff to that extent? Because in most of the cases, these people, with that is the staff, they are the one which helps in breaching out the information. What we could do is we can tell them the strict measures they could take, the penalties which they can get or fine, regular audits and compliance check. XYZ company conducts regular internal audits to assess its data protection practices. This proactive approach ensures ongoing compliance and identifies areas for improvement. That is when you're going to have a regular check and balance and the audit on monthly basis. Definitely you are going to fetch upon the lags and loops which are in your system, and that can affect the people which are associated with your company. Outcome. XYZ company's commitment to the GDPR compliance and the adherence to the Data Protection Act 2018 not only mitigates the legal risk but also builds trust among the clients, employees, and stakeholders. The company's proactive stance toward data protection aligns with the regulatory framework, fostering a culture of responsibility and respect for the privacy within the organization. This scenario highlights the practical application of legislative requirements and the collaborative relationship with the ICO to navigate the complex landscape of managing workplace information.